In this video, I discuss why I think I'm a good photographer.
1, 2, get down. Get down. 2, 1, 2, get down.
What is the deal, beautiful people? My name is Ramon. Welcome to my channel. Here we talk about any and everything photography. Yes, I know that sounds wild. I think I'm a good photographer. Of course I think I'm a good photographer. I've seen this result on a study come up from time to time where when most people in America are asked, are they a good driver? Most of them say yes. But in actuality, they're not a good driver. So let that lend some comedic relief to this very important topic, but I think I'm a good photographer because, and there are a few reasons coming here. One is I've done the work. I've learned all about the technical chops needed to be a good photographer. And what that means is the technicalities of the exposure triangle, right? How your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO come together to really create magic. I've learned all about focal lengths, which focal length best portrays your subject, and this is a very difficult one, and it's deeper than most people think. For instance, when you're doing landscapes, of course everyone's gonna say, you need a wide lens, but do you though? Because there's an entire world of landscape photographers who use long lenses for very purposeful compositions. When you're doing portraits, they say, yes, you need something like a 35 or a 50. Do you though? There's something like Platon who uses a medium format with some crazy wide lens, and that gives a level of distortion that makes him an epic and a legendary photographer. And then there's people that use some extreme long focal lengths to really flatten out the image of the subject. So do you though? And then there's people, when you talk about street photography, the 50 is best because it's roughly the equivalent of the eye. Like, who cares? I've done street photography with 14 millimeter lenses, 50 millimeters, 85 millimeters, 400, 500, 600 millimeters focal length. So like, who cares? It's not about, when I say doing the work to understand focal length, it's not about what you're told works. It's about figuring out all the options and what those options give you and how that lends to your creativity. I've done that work. And then finally, I've done the work around composition, right? Understanding really what is and what is not composition, and how composition works and how it doesn't work. And even though it doesn't work, doesn't mean you don't have a strong image. Like, I've done this work. And in fact, I have a video about composition that you should check out when you get a moment, if you have not already done so. And when I say I've done the work, I made a commitment to this art form, the outlier commitment. What is it, like however many thousands of hours? Like, I've done that. I've came out of work after a 12-hour day, and I've made the commitment to walk the street for another hour and a half to get my shot. I've made that commitment to get out of my bed when it's cold as shit outside or hot as shit outside to shoot with a subject, a model. I've made that commitment to get in the car and travel in very shitty conditions to get the shot that I wanted for my portfolio, or to satisfy an idea that I had, or an inspiration I was aspiring towards. So doing the work, a lot of people, and no matter what it is, you can take this context away from photography. A lot of people are not willing to do the work. They do some of the work and then they raise the banner like, I've done the work. Like, no, you'll never be finished doing the work, because you'll always be learning. You'll always be acquiring new skills or being inspired by new things. You got to do the work. You got to get out there. And I've done it thousands of hours, and I'm happy enough that I've done so many hours of trial and error. I've done so many hours of reading something from this one and actually going out and doing it, or thinking about the opposite of what someone said to do and going out and do that I have a strong basis of what I know will work for me. Does that make sense? The second part about why I think I'm a good photographer, I woefully understand that I will never be good enough. Like I said, you're always going to get new things that are inspiring you. You're always going to get new trends that come about. There's always going to be something to continuously push you and push you and push you. And I welcome that energy. I'll never be good enough. I'll never know everything. I'll never get to that point where I can shut it off now. I can unsubscribe from all the YouTubers that I subscribe from. I can stop looking at all my RSS feeds about photography. I can stop paying attention to what new gear is coming out in the industry and what that new gear, what problem that new gear solves. I can stop paying attention to all that because I am God. I figured it out. No, I will never be in that space. I always want to learn. And I'm always of the opinion that where I am today is not enough, because within the 7-8 years that I've been doing this, when I look back in year 2, in year 4, in year 6, I'm looking at work that I go, wow, I'm shit. I'm happy I didn't stop there because this shit sucks. But you couldn't tell me that 6 years ago, 4 years ago, 2 years ago. I was the shit. Now I am here before you, a much more humble person. I'll never be the shit. Maybe the work that I'm doing today is kind of cool, it's kind of dope, but it can get better. And I will make that commitment to never closing the door by believing that that's the best it could be. You feel me? The third thing I believe makes me a good photographer, I found a mentor, or maybe my mentor found me. And you guys, I've said this before, Jerry James, this guy's, he's got a resume, super dope photographer over in Muskegon. And Jerry and I, we've developed a friendship, a brotherhood outside of photography. You know, we started on Xbox Live, believe it or not. I'm a very big gamer, if some of you may or may not know. And a lot of my closest friends have come from that Xbox Live world. You know, you get home from work and you hop on the Xbox and you're gaming for 5-6 hours. You start to really develop a relationship with these guys you're gaming with. So there's that. Me and Jerry were very close. And then he was already knee deep into photography. And then when I sort of got the bug and the curiousness, inquisitivity about photography, Jerry was able to make sure I had a soft pillow to land on. He was able to guide me in the right direction, and he's always been that for me. He's always been there for me. And crazy as it sounds, I talk to Jerry probably 5 or 6 times a week, and for 1 to 2 hours at a time, and we talk about photography. You know, it's not, I can't really, and we've often had conversations about, man, we should record these talks that we have. People would love to hear a lot about this shit. And I get it. But you know, Jerry is such a sacred place for me because the things I learned from him are just priceless. And having a mentor is not only about someone to guide you in a direction, it's someone to provide a counterbalance of the direction you want to go. And it's someone to bounce ideas off, creative ideas, technical challenges. A lot about what you guys see on this channel, me figuring it out. Jerry's got a lot to play in that. You know what I mean? When I say doing the work, Jerry's very much included in that process of me doing the work. You know, me out taking street photos for 4 hours on a Sunday afternoon or whatever. I'd come home and I'd be editing and I'd go, what the fuck? Something doesn't look right here. And I'll call Jerry. Yo, let me ask you something. Here's the settings. Let me send you this picture real quick. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying though, right? Like I feel like with this particular camera, with these settings, this should be X, Y, and Z. And then we just spiral down. We just keep going, right? That is a very important part of your world as a photographer, as a professional, as anyone that's aspiring to do anything. You have to find a mentor. You have to find someone that can be your counterbalance, that can be a guiding light on your journey. And I made sure that I found that person in Jerry. And for all of you, any of you out there who's on this photography journey, I would recommend you do the same. Find a mentor. Find someone that you can talk to, you can hang out with. Find someone that can make sense of things for you when they don't make sense. Find someone that can pat you on the back when they see that you've achieved your creative vision. You need that. Quick break. I have a question for you, and I would love for you to answer it in the comment section down below. Do you consider yourself a good photographer? If so, why? What are your measuring sticks? How do you measure if you're good or not? And if you don't consider yourself a good photographer, why not? As always, if you like this video, hit the like button. And if you would love to continue to see content like this, hit that subscribe button, helps me out a lot. And in the description, you'll find links to my creative and my professional portfolio, my Instagram, and a Discord group that I've created so we can take a lot of these conversations offline and continue them. Another point to why I consider myself a good photographer, I pay attention to trends. I know this one sounds a little bit weird, but I find a lot of the old guard, they're very snobbish toward trends. And I don't quite agree with that approach. I think by not paying attention to trends, you sort of miss out, right? And you lose touch of things, and you miss out on something you love and seeing something you love evolving. Like, I prefer to be a part of that conversation. I prefer to be a part of that process, that evolution. So I pay attention to trends. And what I'm saying is, by paying attention to trends, it doesn't mean that I'm executing on trends, right? I'm just looking to see what's going on, and I'm appreciating these things. And I feel like a lot of people are afraid to appreciate trends because it may, by you appreciating the trend, may lead you to a place where you feel inadequate because you can't execute on that trend. And I don't think that's true. For instance, teal and orange. I quite like the trend of teal and orange. And maybe it's a lot overdone, but what teal and orange did for me was it exposed me to the very real world and credibility of color theory. Teal and orange is a very popular color trend, but it's not the only one. And diving into that world sort of gave me this awareness that color theory is another tool that I can have on my tool belt, and then I can use to convey emotion, and I can use to capture the audience. And I'm very thankful for that. Another trend is HDR, right? People look at HDR, oh, it looks like a unicorn vomited all over the entire image. Yes, but as I delve in a little bit into things like real estate photography or even landscape photography, I had to learn the true purpose of HDR, and I had to learn how to do things like bracketing to really improve on the deficiencies of our gear, because these cameras have but so much of a dynamic range, and using bracketing and combining that to create an HDR image, I had to learn how that really and truly gets me to my end goal. It doesn't mean I need to kick it off the edge and pump the colors up in some sort of HDR filter, but if I wasn't paying attention to what HDR was, I would have missed the sole usefulness of that tool. And lastly, another point that I think makes me a good photographer, and this is the point of why I think I'm a good photographer, I am always open to feedback. I love the overarching conversation that photography is subjective, and it's about me and how I feel about it. And if you can connect to that, then cool, let's rock out. But I think a lot of people in this world of photography are very closed off to feedback because they feel attacked. And because it is subjective and it is your narrative, your storytelling, your creative direction, they kind of feel like I don't need your input, right? And this goes hand in hand with finding a mentor. It is nice to hear people's input sometimes, right? Because I'll never be at the point where I think, I've got it figured out and I don't give a shit about what you say because this is as good as it gets. I don't think so. You know, I always read the comments on the videos. I read the comments on my work on Instagram, and there's a lot there that you need to have a thick skin and you need to be able to take it with a grain of thought. But there's always some gems in there about composition. There's some gems in there about focal length choices. There's some gems in there about people connecting to your creative vision and your story. So I'm always going to be open to feedback. And I think it's a balance of when and how you should be open to feedback and how you allow that to really mold the direction you go. You got to be careful there because you don't want to appease people, because people don't necessarily understand your creative vision, which is why it's important for you to develop your creative vision and understand where you're trying to go, what you're trying to achieve. But I think accepting feedback is a must, and I'm always open to it. Now, hopefully now that you've reached the end of the video, you understand my perspective on why I think I'm a good photographer. I'm not saying I'm a good photographer because my images are the best or better than anyone out there. No, I think I'm a good photographer because there are some very real foundations and platforms and ground rules and basics that I have implored throughout my journey that will continue to keep me level and balanced going forward, that will continue to lend to the energy of me progressing as a photographer going forward. That's why I think I'm a good photographer. I don't think I'm a good photographer because I use a Sony and you don't, or I use a Fuji and you don't, or I use this lens and you don't, or I'm better at photoshopping than you are. Like that's not where I'm going with this. And hopefully the perspective on how I measure myself, I can give to you as a gift, and you can sort of deploy these things in your journey. And I hope these ideals will help you and serve you as well as they have for me. My name is Ramon. Thank you for checking out the video. I'm out of here. Peace.
1, 2, get down.